So this is Aaron. Great to see you, mate. And if I could ask you just to introduce yourself, and then also just describe for us a little bit about your context, you know, the city or place where you're labouring, and what it's like there.
Okay. Hi guys, so I'm Aaron, I'm from Manchester, up in the northwest. Been a believer about 9 years. Shortly after I got saved, I got introduced to disciple making movements. In some ways I'm really blessed to have not had to unchurch. Like others, it was almost kind of, this is what a person does. And I'm really grateful for that. I lived in Moss Side for a few years, where there's something like 200 languages represented. It was very much like you could reach the nations from here. I'm actually not there anymore. I got called out to the middle of nowhere, a little town called Barsington. And that's where I am now. Whereas, completely different. There's one spoken language, and it's spoken poorly, but I love it.
So, just share with us, how did you get started in terms of what we might describe as movement or multiplication, or even just thinking about, like, how did you get started making disciples?
Yes, so a friend of mine kind of got shown before me, Nick, who was already in Manchester, Nick Duffy, the man, the myth. And he got taught, I think he said by a 10-year-old in Leicester, how to share the gospel, and was convicted that even though he was a church leader, he didn't share his faith and he didn't know how to make a disciple. And then as someone who lived near him in Moss Side and was part of his midweek group, I was like his victim or blessed, I don't know, to be like, let's go do this, mate. So he learned it and then he sucked me in to have someone to go with. And I was none the wiser because I hadn't been a believer very long. So I went along with it.
Okay, and that's how you got started. So what did Nick do for you on that first day? Like, what did you go do?
So we practiced like a gospel tool, the 3 circles, and we spent some time in prayer, and then we went and knocked on some doors around the corner. I actually remember the first door I knocked on, the guy opened, and I offered to pray. He's like, yeah, I'd love that. He would have invited me in and let me share the gospel with him. I had no idea what to do, so I prayed, and then was like, see you later, mate. I've never done it. I've never done it before, honestly. I went back there like 10 times, he was never in. Haunts me still. Haunts me. But God's kind, he gave me other chances down the line.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. That's so good. So, how many years ago is this?
That would be, it's just after my wife and I got married, so maybe 7, 8 years, that sort of time.
Okay. So just describe for us now, 7 or 8 years down the track, just any progress, sort of where are you guys up to in the city of Manchester there? And I don't know if you've got, 1 or 2 stories that might help us understand where you're up to, that sort of illustrate for us the work.
Sure. So we very much went around the 4 fields, if you know the tool, like clockwise, and step by step, and then we got stuck at each one. So we kind of learned how to get past offering prayer to the gospel. And then we had this next thing that was like, no one's responding. And then eventually people started to respond. We had no idea what to do. Or like they'd fall away after a little while. And it's like you hit a wall and then you pray and God helps you over it. And in some ways you're always back to the start, you still sow. But we reached a stage where we were regularly seeing people come to faith. And we're regularly meeting with them to start discipleship. And we have had some gatherings start. There was actually a couple of brilliant ones right before lockdown, sadly. But we learned a lot through that. And they didn't survive because like the lure of the local church, really, and lockdown almost kind of killed the movement, which is very difficult.
Yeah.
But we learned a lot. We learn a lot, and I'm not against that either, by the way. I got saved in the back of like a big legacy church. I would never have gone into an intimate home church because people would have recognised me not turning up. So I could hide in the back of a big one. So I know the body needs it all. But in terms of an encouraging story, this year, a friend of my wife's rang her and asked if she could send her ex-partner to me We'll call him Carl, and it'll become clear why I can't use his real name soon. He'd just been attacked by like some people he owed money to, like a loan shark, and he'd actually been stabbed. And he was just reaching a point where he was going to drop into like despair, possibly even death. So his partner connected him with me, and I just did what I know. It was like, let's go out for a walk. Kind of did almost a Bible study story as we walked, because he wouldn't stay in one place. And then started bumping into people, offering to pray. We met this person who was just in absolute despair. She was like lying in her own vomit. She was a drunk. And the shop just wouldn't help. But we managed to kind of, or he did, with his skills from his life, managed to get into her phone and like get his husband. So he was like holding it up to her face to unlock it so that he could ring her husband, and then we carried her, because she's massive, but we could barely lift her, into her husband's van so that he could take her home. And it was, I don't know what people watching us would have thought, but it sparked something in Carl. It was like, I've never done anything like this, just going out. I thought we were just meant to take people to church. I didn't know I was allowed to like almost to participate as part of the body. And he ended up moving away shortly after, but we stayed connected. And he's just an evangelist in a way that I'm not, mate. Yeah. He's in a recovery home for addicts, and he just basically led all of them, like dominoes, to the Lord. Wow. And he sent me videos. I sent you one or two of him like just baptizing them in the bathtub for like 1 in the morning. sometimes in like boxes, or worse, honestly. And like just, you know, but doing what he was shown and then teaching them to do the same. Wow. And it's gotten to the point where kind of I don't know their names and stuff. And actually last week, so he got arrested last week. So he's had a wobble again, but there's still fruit coming from what he's done. His gathering's still up, and one of the ladies in that gathering got sectioned 3 weeks ago, drug-induced psychosis. So it's a messy gathering. But while in this hospital, she somehow led another lady to the Lord. And I joked on the table, it's like, presumably not by saying, give your life to Jesus so you could be like me. But somehow she's managed it. And she was able to get out for 10 minutes to go to a local church. And the prayer lady, the prayer warrior in that church, got a word of knowledge from the Lord. And the young woman had a demon cast out and was set free. Wow. Except she wasn't set free because they didn't share the gospel with her. So the day later it had come back. So my friend and I went up to see her, shared the gospel, explained repentance, and she was delivered again, and they're now gone for good. She's confirmed with us they've not come back. But it's so beautiful, almost nothing to do with me. I know, just kind of, that's the stories I love, where it's like it's not me doing it, it's someone else who disciples someone else who disciples someone else. And on that day, God let us see it. So it's really, really, really encouraging.
Awesome. So this is what life looks like in Manchester for you.
Yeah.
Incredible. So just help us think or understand just any obstacles or barriers you might be encountering. Just one or two.
I think one of them would be, we've seen churches start, and we had that season where we see them start, but then the lure of local church or the enemy would get in, and maybe they wouldn't survive. The people still walk with the Lord, but it stopped reproducing. One other moment I think would be almost seeing these new harvest churches reproduce, or even reach a point where they'd be healthy if I wasn't there anymore. So I don't know if it might even be I'm the blockage. Trying to like work that all out. But also like literal barriers, like my friend Carly's in prison now, and then addiction's a big one. The type of people God keeps connecting me with are in addiction. And there's something straight incredible. He'll set someone free completely. Someone is set free from 30-year addiction. I've seen it multiple times now. But then when their friends aren't, you almost get like a tension there, like why has he done it for him and not for me? And you know, almost like how a beautiful thing the enemy can somehow make it into a difficulty. I think we need to pray more. That's what I feel. Never go back to God. We need
All
to
right.
pray more.
So last question. Just give us like a significant lesson you've learned, or a game changer for you. What's been one thing?
Yeah, I think that's really like simple obedience to the Great Commission. I've spoken with a few people here who kind of, their story's so familiar to me from a year or two ago. But like, we're out in the harvest, we're trying to raise people up, maybe not quite seeing the discipleship or not quite seeing the church yet, but the sowing's not wasted. A lot of the people that I see now, there's someone we shared with years ago, like on my street, or maybe multiple times on my street, and now they're ready. And it's like, you can trust that every gospel seed counts. I'm not an evangelist either, it's like the powers in the gospel, thank you God.
Yeah.
And then I do think it's been the theme of the weekend so far, like prayer and abiding. We've realised, partly through Nick leaving, became really obvious, like, need to pray more, like our mighty leaders, God. But I think as we've abided more in God, He's even started sending us people. We were doing a Bible study outside last week with a new disciple, Ben, and a woman just kind of came and stood next to us. And it was like, hi there, are you okay? Like, would you like to join us? Just reading the Bible. And she said, oh, yes, please. Like, sat down. And she's since been born again. But we were out in the harvest, but we didn't approach her. Do you know what I mean? That would never have happened back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a parable of the talents thing or what, or like God knows we're ready now.
Wow.
God shifted something as we've gotten to know what to do, I think.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Big thank you for Aaron.